name is Demira Virgil, and I am your host for Queendom Conversations podcast. Today, I have an amazing guest. I have a very strong guest, and she has an amazing testimony. Her name is Mia Hanks. She is not showing her face today because this is a safety concern. So we're going to keep her safe, ladies. She has a story about her ex-husband and about the things that she's been through. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mia so that she can tell us about her journey, ladies.
Thank you. I'm Mia Hanks. And like you said, I was married to a covert narcissist for just under 30 years. And a couple of years ago, I finally got free and decided to, after I had done a bit of healing, decided to write a memoir, hoping to raise awareness about narcissistic abuse and help other victims find their voices. It's a cause that's really important to me. I think there are a lot of women out there, especially who are stuck in these types of relationships. Yeah, I'm happy to be here today and share my story with you.
Thank you so much. And I say this often, Queendom Conversations podcast is a platform for women to have a safe place to speak their truth. And it's about women empowerment. And I always say that we empower women one podcast at a time. It takes a lot of courage to be able to come on a platform and be vulnerable and speak your truth. So with that being said, I think we're just going to take it back to the beginning. So you said that you were married for over 30 years?
Just under 30 years, yeah. And it was a journey. I got married very young. I was only 21 years old. And I think I was very naive. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I had grown up in a very sheltered environment where I just didn't entertain the idea that narcissists existed. I don't think I even knew what a narcissist was. It was a day of many years before I finally figured it all out and put those pieces together.
Let me ask you this. You said he was a covert narcissist. What does that mean?
Yeah, when you think of narcissism, you generally think of this very arrogant, pompous, overt individual. A covert narcissist is quite a bit different than that. To the outside world, a covert narcissist looks like a very humble, kind, generous person. And it's a mask that they wear. Basically, covert narcissists like to portray themselves as the victim oftentimes, and they're just humble and kind, and everybody thinks they're great. But behind closed doors, they're actually manipulative, and they're very narcissistic in that everything is about them, everything revolves around them, and they have to have complete control all the time. So it's a little more dangerous for the victim because you're left in a situation where most people are not going to believe you if you say this is how this person is behind closed doors, because it's not the image they're showing to the outside world.
When you look back to the beginning of your relationship, do you think that he was always this way, or there were different traumas happened throughout the years that he became this way?
No, I believe that he was always this way. And I think it probably stemmed from his own childhood. I just didn't know what to look for. I didn't know, nobody told me what the red flags for narcissism were. I don't think it was something that was really talked about 30 plus years ago. So definitely, as I look back, yes, I see the red flags now, but I just had no idea back then that what I was stepping into.
I am writing notes down as you talk, and I have 1,000 questions, Mia.
Okay.
So women that watch this podcast, they are a wide range of ages. If this is the younger lady, and she may be her early 20s, maybe graduating, going to college, and then she's met this really nice guy, what are some of the red flags? Because I was married to a narcissist, and when he was very controlling when we were younger, I thought it meant that he just loved me. He was controlling, wanted to control the narrative to everything, and then he would always turn things around and make it seem like it was me and like I was going crazy. He has no idea what I'm talking about. It was literally like he studied me, right? So he knew all the weaknesses that I had. And when different things would play out with like friends and family, and like we would have a conversation, when he got mad, he would turn them around and say, that's why your family this, and that's why your family that, and that's why you don't have no friends. And it would always make me feel like there was something wrong with me. And that's a form of control, because it's literally tearing you down to a place to where you don't have any self-confidence.
Absolutely. Yes, that's my story almost to a T, what you just described.
What are some things you can say to young women in their earlier years that if you see some of these patterns going on, ladies, that you need to step back and really pay attention to what you're dealing with?
Definitely the control aspect. Don't get too blindsided by that and think it's just because he cares about me. He's trying to take care of me. Separate taking care of you from control because they are two different things completely. Another question, really, to ask yourself, I think, when you're in a relationship is, how does this person make me feel about myself? And if you're not sure that you feel very good about yourself, you really need to re-examine that relationship. Because narcissists, what they like to do is make you feel horrible about yourself. They want to make you feel like there's something wrong with you, that you're crazy. They want to guilt you all the time. So really pay attention to how you feel about yourself when you're around that person. I think that could be a very telling thing.
Let me ask you this, Mia. When some women meet men and then in their beginning stages of dating, they start talking about everything they've been through. I had a relationship and he did this, he did that, and then I went through this, and then I had this relationship and then he did this, and then you talk about all of your pain, talk about all your hurt, and then you talk about all your situations. And if you are dealing with a narcissist, that is a recipe for a disaster because you are literally telling them every single way that they can get to you and that they can control you because they know your weaknesses. So, what's your thoughts on that when a woman first meets a man? And I've never met a narcissist who, in the very beginning of our us being friends or us dating or whatever the situation is, that they actually showed their true colors. They always make it seem like they are so caring and they're just so in tune to you and they're problem solvers. And so when you have those type of situations and then you have these women who are not really on guard and then they just open up themselves and just pour out every heartache they've had, that can be very bad because you have this man that's studying you and so he sees all of your weaknesses and so he's going to play off of that. So what is your take on that?
It's interesting. In the beginning, the narcissist will, you think they really care about you. They're asking questions, they're trying to get to know you. And it's hard to just be able to separate. You really think they care about your past. They want to know every aspect of you. But really, what they're doing is they're finding your weaknesses. And that's where they strike. So it does put you in a terrible position because if you're really not sure who you're dealing with and you open up to this person, all of those things you say are going to ultimately be used against you. So, really, with a narcissist, they typically don't have empathy. They really are not capable of really caring about people genuinely, but they can fake it really well. So, that's what they do. They fake it and they act like they really care about you and your past and previous relationships and tell me everything about you. But their intentions are not good.
What about his family? So let's say when you first start dating him, because that's for me, when I first started dating my first husband, him and the women in his family, they didn't have a really good relationship. His mom wouldn't really deal with him. His sisters, his aunties, now his grandmother would, but the other women in the family, they were very distant. And when we would have conversations, he would always play the victim.
Yeah.
It's because my father, my mom doesn't really deal with me, and they shut me out, and I haven't done anything. And he always played the victim. But ladies, I really feel like if you're dealing with someone and you go around their family, and their family doesn't really deal with them, especially the women, their mother, their sisters, their aunties, their female cousins. If no one wants to deal with them, then you should start asking some questions on why. So with your husband, was he close with his family? Because sometimes you will have a family and then family act the same way and it's more like generational trauma. And so they all
Yeah.
have the same mindsets. So when you look back, do you feel like his family, they were in line with him as far as their mindsets?
He had an interesting relationship with his family. They all thought he was pretty great. But one thing that if you research narcissism, one thing you'll find is one trait that they pretty much all share is some sort of neglect in their childhood, which kind of that's what creates this narcissism in them. It's more like they use it as a defense mechanism, as a way to protect themselves. And so, yes, my ex husband came from a very nice family and he has a good relationship with all of them. However, in his childhood, he was, I would say, emotionally neglected. I think he came from a type of family where his emotional needs were not met. And it was quite obvious to me that's how he was brought up. And that's probably why he turned out like he did. Yeah, they were close, but I think not on an emotional level.
What are some things you did to help you just get through the first stages of your relationship from maybe 21 to maybe 25, 26? And this is for the younger women, because if you are in a relationship and if some of the things that me and we are talking about is hitting home for you, then I think it's important that you understand ways to be able to deal with this person, because it's not always that easy to just walk away from them. And it's not always that easy to where you can just cut things off, because sometimes they have mental issues where they can be very aggressive when things are not working out or they feel like they're losing control. Maybe between the ages of 21 to maybe 25, 26, as things they were starting to unfold and everybody thought that he was a pot of gold, but then once you got him home, he was like a different person. What are
Yes.
some of the things you did to be able to function throughout those years? Because not every woman watching this can just get up and leave.
For me, leaving wasn't, I never really considered leaving because he had me so conditioned to think that all of the issues that I felt that we had were all my fault. So really, I spent the early years of my marriage trying to hide this abuse. I knew in the back of my mind that something was wrong, that I tried to just shove it under the rug. I tried to pretend like everything was great because you want everybody to think that you have the perfect life. And so I think as I look back, I think I was lying to myself a lot, and I just didn't want to face that the fact that things weren't perfect. So I just did a lot of pretending and gaslighting myself into thinking, yeah, this is normal. This everybody's controlled like this, and I just normalized it, and that's how that was my coping strategy.
There are some women who are hiding and they don't realize they're hiding.
I
Um,
believe so. Yes, yes.
yeah, they don't realize they're hiding. He just had a bad day. He's under stress because finances. We just had some children and he's going to have to adjust. He may have been the only child, or there's some sickness in his family. So he's just having a hard time because they play victim. And so
Yes.
you keep making up these excuses with them. People come over to the house and his attitude has been terrible all day, but then when they walk through the door for the holidays, he is the perfect family member, and so you go along with it. And then you don't have honest conversations with people about what's going on in the house. So many people have this rule: what goes on in the house stays in the house. So many people
Yes,
have
yes,
this
absolutely.
rule, and you have to find someone that you trust and start having some honest conversations about things that are going on, ladies. So many times, as for me, I felt embarrassed. The women in my family have been married a very long time. Actually, they're still married. I was young, I had two kids. I didn't want to be a single mom. I didn't want people to judge me because I was so young. I was like 21 with two kids. And so I stayed and I dealt with a lot of things because fear of what other people they would say about me. My grandfather was a bishop. My grandma was a first lady. I have a lot of people that are in the church community within my family. And then here's Demara. She's left her husband. She got these two kids. And I really feel like I dealt with a lot, and it wasn't even really about me. It was about what other people they would think about me. Um,
That happens a lot, and I can completely relate to that. There is an embarrassment factor. It's really hard to admit to somebody that your life's not going along just perfectly. It takes a lot of vulnerability to be able to go to somebody and say, "I'm not happy. This is terrible. You wouldn't believe what's going on in my house." It takes a lot of courage to be able to do that, and I think for a lot of women especially, it's embarrassing. It's just flat out embarrassing, and a lot of women, I think, find it easier just to hide and pretend. And it's really sad because you can waste a lot of years pretending and hiding.
Let me say this. When it comes to a narcissist and when you give them complete control and then you feel like one day it's going to get better, it's not going to get better.
No, it does not get better. Narcissists will get worse with age. So they get worse with age. It's a proven psychological phenomenon. So if you're in a relationship thinking when life slows down, when he gets that promotion, when this happens or that happens, it's going to be better. It's just not. And I hate to sound doom and gloom. Don't wait. Don't sit around and wait for a time when it's going to get better, because it's just not. In fact, it probably gets worse.
It gets worse. And then sometimes we can lose ourselves because we get so caught up in just walking on eggshells and not really having a response when they say things and just always trying to keep the peace. So you keep this mentality of, I'm just not going to say nothing. He just having a moment. I'm just going to try to keep the peace, especially when you have children. I don't want this confusion around kids. But this is the thing about children. I would be upset and I could be across the room and my kids could be at school and then I could be going to pick them up and I'm across the room, I'm across the parking lot, wherever I am. As I'm walking towards my children, I don't have to say a word to my children, even to this day. They know if something is wrong with me. This is so important for ladies. You need to understand what I'm saying. My daughter can walk through the door. She's 26. And if something is going on with me, she will know. If she calls me on the phone, just the tone of my voice, my daughter, my children know if something is wrong with me. So you may be able to act with people outside of your house, but when it comes to your children and situations going on within your house, it's very hard to do that, and that affects children. I would see my mom sad and that would affect me. I would see my grandmother sad and that would affect me now because I was a kid and I had to stay in a kid's place. I probably wouldn't relay it and say, Mom, I feel this way and that way because I'm a child. But at the end of the day, when I saw sadness on the women within my family, that did do something to me as far as my emotions. So if you feel like that you got it together and you got this under control and you've been acting for a very long time and so you just know what you're doing, no, you don't know what you're doing, because at some point you're going to have to just take a look in the mirror and realize that this is the way life is and it's not going to change. This is my situation.
Yeah, I think a lot of women, and myself included, we're conditioned from probably an early age that you try to make your marriage work. And if you have kids, most people think that, yeah, you need to stay for the sake of the kids. And that really was my mindset. Don't break up your family. The problem there is that even though my kids never really witnessed, certainly nothing physical or anything like that, like you say, they know. They're intuitive a lot more than you think. And the problem is then that they don't get to witness what a healthy relationship looks like. They don't get to see a healthy marriage. What they see is unhealthy. And for the sake of the kids, it's not always the best decision to stay for the kids. Sometimes the best thing you can do for the kids is to leave and get them out of that situation where they can have a chance to observe a healthy relationship.
When you start getting older, because if you met him at 21, and so you're still young and you're still learning and this is all new for you and you passed the honeymoon phase, but as a woman, you are starting to mature and mindset is different. The way you look at things are different because there's growth there. And so he's not dealing with the little girl he was dealing with anymore. He's starting to deal with the grown woman. And sometimes when the person you're dating, especially narcissists, see that there's some strength there, then they will get worse. But what are some things you did from, I don't know, maybe the ages of maybe 26 to 30, because you pretty much know his pattern, you pretty much figured him out, and you pretty much know that he has some issues going on. So what are some things that you started to do to be able to make yourself stronger mentally, emotionally, spiritually, so that you would have enough strength to leave? Because it's a process. I would never say that when I left, I just got up and left. Like, it took time to build the courage. It took time to build the strength to get my mindset right. That was a whole process in itself. So for women who are dealing with this and they know that this is a situation that they don't need to be in and they're trying to make some decisions and figure things out, they don't even know where in the world to start. What are some things you did to be able to put you in a place to where you can just walk away?
I started doing I was doing a lot of online research, and really what prompted the research, I was scrolling through social media one day, and this was probably 27 years into my marriage, and I'd been miserable for a very long time. I was scrolling through social media and I ran across a quote And I don't remember the quote exactly off the top of my head, but it had to do something about, it was talking about true intimacy. And it mentioned something about that true intimacy is not necessarily physical, but true intimacy is being able to look at your partner and say, I feel safe with you. And I read that quote, and I asked myself if I felt safe. And the answer was no. I absolutely did not feel safe. And that just struck a chord with me for some reason. And I started doing some research online and started looking up, taking online quizzes. Is my relationship toxic? And just trying to figure it all out. And that's what prompted me. And the more I read and the more I came to understand narcissism and covert narcissism, it made me realize, it helped to validate what I was feeling, because I really did have to give myself permission to leave, to tell myself, yeah, it's okay if you leave. So that's probably a lot of online research and a lot of reading was what helped me basically give myself that permission.
What about therapy? Did you have any type of therapy
I
during this?
did. Yeah. Toward the end of my marriage, my husband actually wanted to go to marriage counseling. And it seems strange, but it is very typical. Narcissists love to go to therapy. They love it because 9 times out of 10, they can charm the therapist and they can basically go into therapy and tell them everything they want you to change. And it's like they've got backup, somebody to agree with them, somebody to tell you you're the problem. So that was interesting because after about maybe 7 or 8 therapy sessions, our therapist kicked him out of therapy. She was able to see that she straight up said, you can't see things from other people's perspectives. You're not self-aware, and therefore I can no longer help you. So that was a huge bit of validation for me to say, wow, this therapist she even says there's something wrong with them. So yeah, after that point, I actually did find a therapist who had some specialty in narcissism, and I did seek out a therapy, and it was a huge help.
And something that I noticed also is when they sense that something is starting to shift within the relationship and they like to be in control, so they can't really figure out what's going on, they will try to use tactics, their mind games, to try to make you seem like they're getting help or that they're trying to get better, or it's not going to be like this, or their behavior may change, but it doesn't change forever. It's just for a short time because they're trying to figure you out. They're trying to process what's going on with you. One thing about a narcissist is they pay attention to everything.
Yes, they
Right?
do.
So
They
your
do.
routine changes. If you wear makeup you weren't before, if there's some extra money that's not in the account, if you're looking at properties, they go through your browser on the website. Like, they pay attention to everything. So if there are some things about you that are starting to change, they will notice that. They don't miss nothing. Stuff that you wouldn't even think that they pay attention to, and they don't forget anything.
They
You can
don't,
say,
and that makes it hard
no,
to leave. It's very
no.
hard to leave because they are watching every move you make, especially if they think that something's up, that you're not happy, that they will watch. And so with my case, I didn't abruptly leave. It was a slow process because it felt like that was the safest way. But then they will employ this financial abuse. And that is ultimately what causes most women to end up staying with their abuser. When you don't have any control over finances and you can't, it takes money to leave. I think that's one thing that a point that I really like to drive home to people is it takes money to leave. That's just the bottom line. You've got to be able to, say, if you want to go get an apartment, you can't do that if you don't have access to bank accounts. So it is difficult to acquire. And the other thing that you really need in order to leave is you need somebody helping you, because like you say, they watch everything. If they see withdrawals from the bank account, they're gonna question, what is this for? You really have to be sneaky, and there's a lot of things you have to do to keep your safety in mind as well.
And then another issue that women have is finances. They haven't really inquired about the finances. He's been pretty much handling everything. And now you say you want a job or you want to go back to school, or you start having questions about, okay, what about this? What about that? it can be difficult to get yourself in a situation financially to where you can leave because they like to be in control. You've been married 10 years and you haven't won a job within the last 10 years, so why do you want a job now? So that causes issues, and then he becomes more controlling because he sees that something is going on. So if you have not been doing that or playing the role of having your own money coming in, then it can be difficult to get yourself in a situation to where you can have the finances to leave.
That's true. My ex-husband, as soon as he realized that I wasn't coming back, the first thing he did was he basically drained the bank account. And that was his tactic to get me to come back. He figures if I can't afford to go and buy groceries, then what choice do I have? I've got to come back to him. So they use money as a means of control. And fortunately, I have my parents, and I basically just moved in with my parents is what I had to do initially. But money is a control tactic for them. And it is important that if you are planning an escape, and I call it an escape because it is an escape, you really do need to be thinking about finances and measures. One thing that I talk about in my book, I talk about different things you can do when you're preparing to leave. And one thing is when you go to the grocery store, get cash back. It sounds minor, but you can start building a little fund that way. Every little bit helps because, like I say, it takes money to be able to walk away.
So let me ask you this, Mia. You said in the beginning that his personality, people on the outside, they would never believe he was acting the way he would on the inside. So can we talk about the mindsets of people? Because there are a lot of people, there are a lot of women who, when they have the courage to speak to somebody, and then the first thing they say is, nah, he can't be doing that. Him, I was raised with him, I know him, or I've been knowing him for years, that's my coworker. Now you got to be exaggerating. And then it will cause her to second guess herself and then feel like maybe it's her, which he's been telling her that it's her all the time. Then when she has a conversation with somebody she feels like she can trust because they can't see it, they don't believe her. Can we talk about that for a minute? Because there are some women who stay in situations because when they try to reach out and get people to help them, they don't believe them.
Yeah, I had my situation is very similar to that. I don't think any of our mutual friends, any friends that my ex-husband and I had mutually, I would say 100% of them don't believe me. And it is hard. It is hard, but you have to realize that this person better than they do. You've been doing life with this person a lot longer than they have, and you see a side that they don't see. It does make you feel a little bit crazy at times, but what I've had to do is effectively just leave all those friends behind. I basically had to let him have all those friends. And it's hard because you want to be angry and you want to say, you guys, don't you believe me? Why would I lie about this? But you do have to let it go. And that's been a process for me, letting those friends go and watching them basically join his side. Yeah, you just have to walk away and find people that do believe you, because if they're not going to believe you, then it's probably not healthy for you to be around them.
This is for ladies who, if you have women in your life and they've been trying to have some conversations with you and they've been trying to speak their truth to you, and because you can't see it, you don't believe them, right? Because when that person comes around you, and let me be clear, it's not always a relationship as far as a husband. It could be somebody's best friend, could be somebody's sister, could be other family members. Like, it could be anybody, just anybody within their life that they're struggling with. When they come to you in confidence and they say, this is going on with me, you really need to pay attention. I will never say what a person won't do. You will never hear me say, I know for a fact he won't do that. I would never say that, because behind closed doors, people do all kind of things. Turn on the news.
Yeah, it's true. And I think people in my situation, I think some people that I spoke to, that I tried to talk to, that kind of didn't believe me, I think some people just don't want to deal with it. It just feels messy, and they would just rather just not have anything to do with you because you're going to be requiring too much emotional support and they don't want to provide it. But another thing to keep in mind is if somebody does come to you and tries to confide in you, um, there's no reason to lie about this. Realize that it takes a lot of courage to admit this stuff. So if somebody is confiding this stuff in you, it's probably embarrassing to them. So there should be no reason to think they're lying. They're really making themselves vulnerable, and it is embarrassing to have to admit these things. It's mean to assume that somebody in that vulnerable state is lying to you.
Let's talk about different type of resources. Are there any resources out there you're aware of, or any Facebook groups, or just anything where people they can get some about the narcissist, or just like a support group for women who are going through it? I know they have a lot of private groups, different places.
They do. When I was going through my divorce, I found one specific Facebook group, and it's also a podcast. It's called the Covert Narcissism. I think it's called the Covert Narcissism Podcast. And Renee Swanson is the name of the lady that does that, and she has a Facebook group. I found that to be very helpful. She was in a similar situation, and she shares a lot of her stories. Yeah, and it's interesting. I felt like I wanted to find a lot of material and a lot of resources, but I found that most everything came from the standpoint of a therapist or a psychologist. And it was all very academic, what I could find. What I wanted to hear about were stories of people who had lived this life. I wanted to understand it from an insider's point of view. And that is actually why I decided to try my hand at writing and wrote a memoir, letting people see what does day-to-day life look like with these people? What is an insider's point of view? Yeah, there are a lot of resources. There's a lot of podcasts, and there are a lot of Facebook groups. And basically, if you just start Googling narcissism and narcissistic abuse, there's a lot of stuff that can help you. And it is important to find those resources.
Yes, it is, because a lot of women feel like they're alone. They feel like nobody understands. These are the characteristics of a narcissist, but maybe it's just me, because that's what the person has been telling you, that is you for so long. So every decision you make, it's like you second guess yourself because you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to get it wrong. You don't want him to be upset with you. And it's just a repeat cycle of just so many levels of just things, like walking on eggshells about everything in life. And it's really important that you get the resources, or you read the books, or you find some private groups, or just something, because not everyone's going to understand this journey, because everyone, they have not dealt with it. They can listen to you and they can try to understand, but unless you've dealt with it and you've lived it, you don't truly know. So can we talk about your book, Mia?
Yeah, so I don't really consider myself a writer, but I just felt like a memoir type book was necessary. And basically what I did is I laid it out in a series of short stories, and it's just chronological from the time that I met my ex-husband all the way through our divorce. And I just try through this series of little vignettes, I try to explain what day-to-day life looks like. And just from the small things all the way to the more dramatic events, and then of course the high conflict divorce. So I hope it will help people understand what life is like for a victim of narcissistic abuse, and for others that are going through it, hopefully that it will resonate with them, and they'll say, wow, this is exactly what it looks like in my house too. Because those that haven't lived it, it's really hard to believe. I mean, you can see why somebody might doubt you for a moment, because it sounds crazy. It really does. You can't believe that there are people that could be that manipulative, but they are out there.
A narcissist will get you to a point where they will literally have you feeling like you're crazy. They will have you feeling like you are losing your mind. Something is, and I am not making this up, you will literally be sitting there, and even though when you have a conversation, this is how good they are. You are right. You are right about it all. And when you have a conversation with a narcissist, they are so good at lying and just being a manipulator. You will literally start to feel like, maybe it's me. I am so serious. I've never seen anything like it before in my life. It is the truth. They will have you thinking that something is literally wrong with you. And everything you do, they will make you feel like you're crazy.
Yeah,
what you're talking about, I didn't mean it that way. You're overthinking. Something's wrong with you. You need to go sit down. Like, I'm not even thinking about that. And the whole time, it's just little bitty subliminal things. Small things equal big things. Like this small thing here and this small thing there. Everything adds up. And through the years, you're just dealing with all these small things they're doing, and these little things they're saying, and these little subliminal petty shots they're doing. And Then when you look up, you have all these things. They have added into something that's very large. And when you look in the mirror, you don't even realize who you are because all these small things, they're starting to take a toll on you.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It's brainwashing. It's brainwashing. And
Yes.
they're gaslighting you, but to the point that you are conditioned to start gaslighting yourself. I would think to myself, he would always tell me I was overreacting. You're too sensitive. And I really thought for a lot of years that, yeah, I guess I blow things out of proportion. Maybe and you start to question your own how you recall events and how your emotional response to events. You start to think, I guess there is something wrong with me. And you really think that the problem is you. And that's how I lived for a long time.
So what are your social handles? Like Facebook and TikTok, Instagram? Do you have any social handles that the ladies can follow?
Yes, I have a TikTok page, and the handle is at NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder, at NPD and me. And I post on there a lot of content about just narcissism and narcissistic abuse. And I hope it's a page that's really helpful to a lot of people. So please follow me on that. I post every day. And then I have a website that's just getting up and running. It'll ultimately have a blog, and that is miajhanks.com. And then my book is Bridemaid, a memoir, and it's available everywhere online that books are sold. It's in paperback and ebook formats.
And if you had one thing to tell yourself, and I ask guests this, every guest I ask all of them the same question. So when you go back to your age of 21, this is when everything it was starting to take place. This is before you knew the things that you would have to go through. What is something you would tell yourself to help you get through all the challenges you've been through?
I would want to tell myself, you're not stuck. You don't have to stay, and you can get out. Because I felt stuck for a lot of years. I felt stuck because of expectations that you're supposed to stay in your marriage. I felt stuck because I had 2 kids and you can't break up your family. And I felt stuck because of financial abuse and all these things. But yeah, if I could go back and tell myself one thing, it's you're not stuck. There are resources, and you do not have to live this way.
Do you have any type of scriptures or like an affirmation that you stand on that no matter what's going on, it just gets you through things?
I do. I have several. Let me think. I like I believe it's Proverbs 3, 5 through 6, which says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight.
Amen to that. So, ladies, again, this is Mia Hanks, and I felt that it was so important that she come on this platform today and tell her story. Again, she is not showing her face because of safety. We want to make sure she's safe. But I just want to tell you that I'm very proud of you, Mia, for coming on here, telling your story, being vulnerable, and just having the courage to want to change someone's life. I know someone, they're going to watch this video, even if it may not be her, but it's someone she knows. And it's going to give them some knowledge. They're going to have some aha moments. And then this is going to put them in a place where they're starting to question things a little bit more. One thing that I've learned is you don't always have to have a response to everything. Sometimes you can just sit back and watch the way a person moves, and you'll get all your answers, ladies. It doesn't always have to be verbal. And you telling people, I'm just watching what you're doing, and this and that and this and that. Sometimes just sit back and watch the way a person moves, especially when they don't know you're watching them, and you will get answers. So again, I am Demira Virgil, and this is Queendom Conversations podcast, where we empower women one podcast at a time. Thank you so much, Mia.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hello, beautiful people. I'm Demira Virgil, your host at Queendom Conversations podcast, where we empower women one podcast at a time. At Queendom, I'm not just a host. I am a creator of many things that reflect the narratives and testimonies of survivors just like you. Visit queendom.com and discover a collection infused with meaning, from candles and aroma melts to prayer books, journals, apparel, and canvas art. Each piece carries a story, a survivor's journey, and a testament to resilience. And a special thanks to our sponsor, The Rose Co. at roseco.store. Experience the best hair where beauty meets luxury. Visit roseco.store today and support a small women-owned business. Your support truly matters as it empowers young women and contributes to their success. I love to see young women stepping out on faith and making their mark on the world.